Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 100 for March 14th, 2022. Apple announces new devices. Anything But Idle turns 100. And the productivity news this week. Each week, we review and discuss the productivity and related technology news headlines of the week. And this week, we have a whole bunch of friends of the podcast joining us today for the show. And so bear with me while I get everybody up here and introduce them onto the stage. And so first and foremost, we have Frank Buck. Dr. Frank Buck is currently ranked #1 in the time management category by Global Guru's Top 30. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Glad to be here, guys.
Next up, we have Julie Bestry. She is a certified professional organizer, a productivity coach, and she's in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she's the owner of Best Results Organizing. Welcome on.
Thank you, and congratulations on 100.
Thank you. Next, we have Trevor Lawbeer. He is the founder of Day Optimizer. It's a time management progressive web app, and it helps you create daily plans that align with your priorities. Welcome on, Trevor.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
And last but not least, and I know that Francis Wade is joining us a bit later, but last but not least is Art Gelwicks. He is a digital transformation coach. He's a consultant. He's a podcaster and writer at Gelwicks Tech. Welcome onto the show, Art.
Thank you for having me. I love the fact that Julie's 100 was on an index card. How suitable.
That's right. She's a paper. Yeah.
Well, there are 3 out of 4 of us for Productivity Cast on the show, and I think Francis is going to round us out when we get there. Lots of index card folks with us today. So what we're going to try and do is try to herd cats on the podcast today and get through the news of the day. And if anybody wants to share any, there are Post-it notes on screen, and if anybody wants to share any anecdotes or anything like that about maybe when they were last on, if you remember that even, and we can kind of cover from there. But Augusto, what is our first headline this week?
Oh, do we have headlines today? Oh, I don't know. How to practice self-care as a busy entrepreneur. And I love the topic of self-care, mostly because that was something that I didn't have. And that was something that I needed to learn the hard way. I grew up in an environment where self-care was for the weak. So only the weak people, do self-care. And well, I massively burn out at some point because excess of self-care or lack of self-care. So it is a topic that is close to my heart, and is a topic in which I believe that we need to learn not only to make that a priority, but to learn what are the activities that help self-care, have them in written, and this is where the index card helps so much, but not only have a random list of them, have a random list and really what they provide you. Because when you are on those exhausted moments and you watch movie, listen to comics, or read a book, your brain is too tired to decide, this in this order, this is what is going to produce me the better effect based on what you are and where I am. So I'm a big believer that it's not only important to have that list of what are the activities you need to do for self-care, but also what these activities give you back. Because when you are there, you are not going. And that's one of the things the article mentioned. And he talks about 6 types of self-care: the emotional, the practical, the physical, the mental, the social, and the spiritual. My list is not divided on those 6, even though I can see that it is. But incorporate this into your routine, automate your life as part of this. Outsource your stress. So if any of you is interested in stress, let me know. I have plenty. Okay. Boundaries. I don't do that really well. And then the finally is do it. Planning is good, but action is better.
Yeah, so I would turn this over to the folks here. What do you do for self-care? And since those of you who are listening, there are more than just Augusto and I on screen right now. So if you want to say something, just raise your hand, and I can then let you speak in an order so that we don't have everybody talking over one another. But like, I'm curious, what do you do as folks who are steeped in the personal productivity space? What do you do in terms of self-care? What's the one or two tips that you would give to folks in that sense?
Yeah, I'll jump in, one with physical and one with mental. I'm not a big one for, lifting heavy things over my head or anything like that, but I do try to walk on a regular basis. Get on the treadmill in front of a TV show that I wanted to watch anyway, recorded so that so that it's enjoyable enough I'll actually do it, or getting out and walking the dog around the neighborhood. So that I know myself well enough to know that I will do that on a regular basis. And then the mental is just, as being a productivity person, having everything in a system so that you're not worried about what's slipping through the cracks, and that every day you just get up and work the system, and the next day work the system, and just stick with it.
Go for it, Julie.
So I would say the two main methods, and all of the methods mentioned in that article are fabulous, but for me, boundaries are huge. So many of my clients feel like everything in their life is bifurcated. They can't pay attention to any one thing because they've got notifications going on. They've got kids. They've got spouses acting like kids. They've got their coworkers. Everybody coming in and dividing up their attention. So for me, it's a little bit easier because my space is my own, but I have set boundaries, both physical and sort of in terms of what I allow into my headspace. So for example, you guys know I am not a morning person. So I send everything, and people will often get emails from me 3 a.m. That's fine. They know they're not going to be calling me or getting any kind of response back at like 7, 8 a.m. Also, in addition to boundaries, and as sort of a satellite of that, it's being able to say no and being confident in saying no. So if somebody asks you to do something, no matter how awkward you feel, it is easier to say, no, but let me tell you who I think would do a great job, or no, but circle back to me in 3 months, rather than saying yes and then letting somebody down at the last minute. So being able to confidently say no is part of that boundaries. The other thing is walking. It's like no matter how tense you are, when you feel like all of your limbs are going to sort of fly off in disparate directions, if I get outside and start walking, whatever is upsetting me, whatever is going on in my head, I can talk through it as I walk through it. And 98% of the time, by the time I've made it all the way back in a circle, or sometimes several circles back to my home, I am at peace with whatever decision I've made, whatever I've had to work through that's stressing me out. So like Frank, I'm not lifting a piano over my head, but I am constantly moving forward, even that if that means pacing, if it's raining outside, pacing back and forth in my living room, because your body doesn't know where you're walking. It just knows that you're moving, and it's getting oxygen inside and keeping everything limber. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I've got two rules that I follow. I follow redirect and disconnect. And redirect is in circumstances where I find I've hit a roadblock or a stress point on a particular type of work I'm doing. Say it's something creative. I'm creating something for Instagram, for example, and I just can't get over that hurdle. I'll redirect that creative effort into something else, but not that original thing. So maybe I'll do some writing. Maybe I'll work on some video editing. Something else that still is in that same space that helps me alleviate the frustration, but also maintain that same process. So then I can circle back to the first one and say, okay, well, I can still actually do this, so I might as well go back and try that first one. The second part is disconnect. And just like we were talking about with the physical walking and things like, I'm not a big exerciser, but I do like to have that physical disconnect. So I will go out, say, to my workshop and work in my workshop, or I'll work on my truck, or something that requires a physical presence of location, tactile interaction. It requires a different sense engagement, allows me to disconnect from the box in front of me and allow a whole different portion of my brain and my psyche and my energy levels to just work on their own. And a lot of times, like Julie says, amazing ideas come up when you are working completely disconnected from that first state of being. So, as I said, I follow redirect, then disconnect.
Wonderful. I am a runner, so I am the guy who enjoys the physical exertion to be able to both de-stress, but also to find a clear form of thinking. Like I have most of my self-reflection time, my best ideas, all of those happen when I'm out on the road. And rarely I will get a phone call during those time frames. And I'm a long distance runner, so most of my runs are fairly long. So, they get a little mundane if you get into the 10 miles and then 20 miles and so on and so forth. And at that point, a conversation with someone is possible and enjoyable. And so that can be very stress relieving for me, especially if you get toward the half marathon mark in terms of distance, and you might find yourself a little fatigued, you're feeling a little bit of pain. Being on the phone with a friend and laughing is just a really great form of anesthetic, and so then it becomes a really nice way to enjoy an experience. So for anyone who is of the fitness mindset, I think it's really good to keep in mind that sometimes, it can be fairly useful to de-stress in a physical way. And you don't have to be running long distances or biking or swimming or doing any of the crazy, gym techniques that are out there, from CrossFit to, hydroplaning or whatever you people are doing out there. You don't have to do all those things in order to just get your heart elevated and seeing the positive benefits of that. And so I also wanted to note, for anyone who is joining us live, you can chat live either on YouTube or Facebook or otherwise, and we can see your chat. So hi there, John. Hey, Pietro. So feel free to chat along while we are making our way through the episode, and feel free to ask questions. And you have a lot of great productivity intellect here, so take advantage of it while you're here live and in and on the show. All right, Augusto, anything else before?
Yeah, before we jump, since we have a luxury that we have so much productivity minds in here, I would love to get, what is your favorite self-care practice, or what is it? Maybe not the favorite, because that's what we should. But what is the one that you, or one or two that you can give people? Because I think one of the difficulties with this is I come and say, this is what it worked for me. And mine is, one of them is reading, but you may be on the place where reading, that will never work for me. And I think the more you listen to what worked for others or what others recommend, the better you get to open that menu of ideas and have them, hey, I may try that and get more ideas. So if Frank and Julie and Trevor and Art don't mind sharing a couple, that would be awesome.
Go for it, Trevor.
So I guess one of my key ones, and I started this a couple years ago, is taking the weekends off, which is easy enough to say. But specifically, I schedule Sunday as a non-scheduled day, as a free day. So I tend to do my chores and catching up with stuff on Saturdays, and try to make Sunday like just kind of open day. So I'm like to let go of all the stress. And so I can just, it's like a play day, right? I create Sunday as a play day. So that's one of the key things I do. The other thing I do, like I walk every day, and I'm a big fan of the Don't Break the Chain. So I've got this whole app to help me not do that. But I have this rule that after 5 days, I'm allowed to cheat. And my app allows me to have a cheat day in it, and I don't break the chain. And so the idea of having cheat days, and I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss's slow carb diet as well, which has the concept of cheat days. So cheat days help give a release valve to any build up stress and help me then maintain my self-care practices, because I don't have to think about them. Oh, I have them every single day. But also, if I don't have that idea that I'm doing every single day, I then skip, and then I skip, and I skip. So that never skip twice. Some people use that rule, but I do. I must do 5 days in a row before I'm allowed a cheat day. And then that allows me to have this release valve.
By the way, Dr. Abraham Maslow wrote a book called Habits, and that's where the don't skip 2 days comes from. That phrase comes from that book, as far as I'm understanding. Maybe somebody knows differently, but he writes in the book. You can skip. If you're trying to develop a habit, you could skip a day, but don't skip two. is kind of how he says it in the book, and it's in very old English.
Well, and the reason I developed the 5-day rule is if you take that rule literally, you can do, okay, do my habit, then I skip a day. I do my habit, then I skip a day, right? So having you have to do 5 days in a row before skipping is the second level to that says, okay, you have to gain some momentum before you're allowed to skip.
Yes, and John is noting that that Don't Break the Chain might work for him, and that actually comes from Jerry Seinfeld, remarkably. While I'm okay with the Don't Break the Chain philosophy, I'm a fan of Jerry Seinfeld. So so Trevor's a fan of Don't Break the Chain. I'm a fan of Seinfeld. Anyone else? Julie, go for it.
I don't know that this will work for everyone, but my big issue that leads to my problems and leads to my needing self-care is I get too into my head. I can't stop thinking about things. I'm good about standing still, but I'm not walking. and prioritizing, I'm good at focusing. What I'm not good at are the quiet moments, because my head is never quiet. And so the key for me is to have somebody else's words, something else going on as my self-care. So for me, that means I watch shows that just make me laugh. So I can watch Ted Lasso over and over. But my big thing these last few years, particularly during the pandemic, is I've been on Duolingo learning Italian. So I have completed all but the subjunctive imperfect. I have completed everything in the Italian course on that side. And my voices in my head were still not quiet. So I am now on the other side learning English from Italian. And since I already know English, some of that is a little bit easier. But it presupposes that Italian is your primary language. And so you're learning, the class is put together very differently from the Italian class. And just because I'm having to operate in another language, it's forcing me to focus on the language and not all the other voices. Oh, when am I going to get that done? Or what if this doesn't work? Or what if they don't laugh at my jokes? Because I don't have all of the vocabulary to think of that in Italian yet. And that's very helpful.
That is an awesome idea. I came to this country 22 years ago, and I did not speak any English. What I did to learn was cartoons and kids' books. So I used to go to the Barnes and Nobles and grab books from the kids section and read them with the dictionary. But there is a difference. When you read a book designed for a little kid, 2-3 years old, the sentences are really simple, so you can start grabbing that. The other thing was watch TV, again, cartoons or Disney Channel, and put the closed caption it in there, because then you get used to read that how they are pronounced, how they are written, and it helps. And those Disney channels in general are basic enough to help. But I did not thought to find a course on how to learn Spanish from an English perspective that it will have been really, really interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah, the closed caption, that is wonderful. A friend of mine, Danny Purcell, who is America's leading reading ambassador, speaks all over the world. And he said, if you really want to do something to help your child with reading, turn on closed caption. Simple. I'll jump in. Looking back on my career, having a community of people that do what you do. I was a band director. Well, you're the only band director in your school. The other people in that school can't really relate to the problems you're having and really help you with what you need help with. another band director can. That may be in a neighboring community. It may be, of course, these days, it could be in another state. It could be in another country. Later, I'm a school administrator where you're the only principal in that school. So when you got a principal type problem, you got nobody to turn to within that school. So you've got to make an effort to find those people, to find yourself a community, regardless of how far you have to go out geographically to do it. And it makes all the difference in the world.
For me, it's always been, when I hear the read, first I want to throw in a tip for Duolingo. I'm a Drops fan myself, so just another app. I really like the way they do things. I find anything that has a rhythmic activity that requires focus without intellectualization. So running would fit into that category, other things like that. I actually do something that's a little bizarre. Anyone who's ever seen a woodworker use a hand plane, which is a smoothing tool used to shave bits of wood off, right? It's kind of like rowing a boat. It requires you to focus to get those little paper thin curls, but you really can't think about anything else while you're doing it because you make a mess out of it, stutters and shit. So it's that kind of rhythmic, repetitive, all of a sudden 10 minutes have gone by, 15, 20, 25. You got a skinny board now, but all of a sudden everything's cleared out. So I really recommend to people, find something that requires focus without intellectualization, gardening, anything like that.
So I'll note that for me, it's reading. Reading is hands down my favorite activity, and it's better than breathing. I'm breathing. I don't like. I really enjoy the experience of being with a book, and so yeah, it's my favorite activity. It's the way in which I start my day. It's the way in which I end my days, and I find it to be the most engaging conversations outside of when I'm podcasting with all of you that I have in any given day. It's like you're in dialogue with someone, right? Because the author is putting their best effort into it. You hope, right? If they're writing well, they're putting their best effort into communicating something to you. Most of my reading is also nonfiction, although I have picked up in some of my book clubs some fiction pieces, and so I hold my nose and I read. But most of my reading is nonfiction, and so I feel like I'm in a true intellectual dialogue with that individual who's writing, and it's just incredibly stimulating to be the only person capable of responding. And so there's no talk back. You can have whatever thoughts you want about what they're saying in the book, and you get to have a level of intellectual rigor that I just find to be very therapeutic for me, because the rest of my day I'm interacting with people, and my advice is potentially not going to work for them, or they change the model because they feel like they need to do it differently than the way in which I'm explaining it. All of those things are happening, which is human and natural and so on and so forth. But with a book, there's none of that. They can't tell you that what you just thought was, not right, or you can tell them as much as you want in the margins of a book, or if you're on a Kindle, you can highlight and write all of your comments, but there's just no talk back. It's like a dog. Dogs are wonderful creatures because you give them love, they give you love and affection back, but they don't ever talk back. And that's wonderful.
And, and Ray, you make a good point. And there are different flavors of reading. Reading a book, even reading a long read from a magazine, print or digital, very different from reading social media, which is having that dopamine hit that's addicting you to novelty over and over. I think so much of what we read when we're in the social media is conditioning us to read more social media, and also to have difficulties reading that long form. So we're used to getting we're getting angry, or we're agreeing, or we're doing something in these tiny bite-sized reactions in social media, whereas we almost get angry sometimes when we're reading a long form book, because it's like he's still talking about the same thing 3 paragraphs later, and then you realize, oh, and now I have depth and nuance to think about, and then whether you want to get angry and talk back to the book or enjoy it. But investing yourself in whatever you read. I think our brains work very differently when we're reading fiction versus nonfiction. We can forget what we think about what's going on when we read fiction because we are engrossed in a new world, whether that's a science fiction world or a historical world or just somebody else's life. Whereas when we're reading nonfiction, I think we're sort of reading each thing and seeing how each item reflects our experiences, whether there are personal experiences, our experiences that we know that our clients have said to us. So we get this rich tapestry from reading, and the fact that you go, I, like you, read mostly nonfiction. But when I do read fiction, I find that it's much more memorable. It's like you guys have heard me say, it's sticky. And it's like, because these characters are like other human beings. And so during the pandemic, I read much more fiction because I was missing that connection with humanity. And so these are great ways for us to move that self-care forward, because when we're only in our own heads, we sort of get stuck there. But when we encounter fictional people, we're taken along on their rides, and it's kind of like going and listening to a friend complain about his or her problems. It's such a relief to have a release from your own issues. So
Yeah.
Yep. Frank, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Ray, as digital as you are, I was just wondering, when you read, is it usually paper? Is it usually digital?
Yeah, it's a mixture based on the material that I'm reading. So, for example, I'm a heavy newspaper reader. I actually don't particularly like reading the news in other formats nowadays. So I'm trying to read in that long form, single source space where you've paid someone to have deep knowledge, or at least deep critical thinking, to do that thinking for you so that you can then reflect upon it. So that'll be usually on a tablet, like an iPad, where I'm reading in the news organization's application, and then if I am in the reading space, then it's a mix. I have thousands of books, and physically, and then of course I have probably equally thousands of books digitally. So it just depends on what I happen to be reading when. And what I found myself doing is actually taking photographs of pages as I'm writing notes on books, and actually capturing those into Evernote so that I have a single source where all of those notes are. And I haven't done back matter because there's probably thousands of books that are back matter in that sense. But going forward, about, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, I started photographing generally what I was annotating in the books, and that allowed me to centralize into a single space. So it's definitely a mixture. And if I get a book out of the library that's on digital, then I'm going to do it digitally. If I get it out physically, then I'm going to get it out physically. But many times, if I like a book and I'm going to reread it, then I'm going to have the physical hard or softback, and I'm going to have that in hand. And I will say I still enjoy a physical book more than the digital, but I've gotten very comfortable with the digital reading now that I didn't once upon a time. And I think it's about form factor. Like I got the Kindle cover that's, it's very comfy to hold, those kinds of things. It just makes it a little, like I like the ability of holding a book and you feeling the weight of the book, kind of like resting there in your hands and reading. And so having the Kindle kind of have that same rough weight was really important for me to be able to have that same experience that I wasn't having before.
Good.
Oh, that's interesting. No, digital completely for me. And actually, there are many books that I receive in paper that I go and buy in digital. I can highlight it and have them all there. I think I've been doing digital since the times of the peanut press. And we're talking about maybe 2000, 2001, when they were really expensive, and before even the first Kindle came out. There is something, I carry a book or two with me most of my younger years. So when I was finally able to carry the whole library and the dictionaries and all that in that little device, I was really, really excited. Actually, December this past December, I was looking into all papers and find a gold sheet from the 90s. And I was reading that and say, someday I want to have a library like the father of a friend of mine. And I was reading that, and I was sitting here in my office and looking around saying, oh, well, I don't have that many books. And suddenly it hits me, well, if I open my Kindle collection, well, I may not be there yet, but I'm getting pretty close. And that was really, really exciting for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Go for it, Trevor.
I was just gonna jump in and say, like, it was like maybe 5-6 years ago. I was there, like, I have all these books, and now I live in 2 different countries. It's annoying to have lots of paper books, so I actually sent them all off to get scanned, except for like a handful of books that were really special. So, like, because it was cheaper for me to scan the books than to rebuy everything as Kindles. So, like, I took this huge library and just shipped it off and had it all scanned. So now everything except for a couple special books are digital.
Yeah, that's great. Well, guys, I've got some family things to attend to, so I'm going to have to bow out of this one, but I'm going to watch the replay. This is good conversation, and I hate to have to say good evening, but
No worries. Well, thanks for joining us for part of the show. Drop in,
Absolutely.
drop out. I understand that. So thanks for joining and helping us celebrate 100 episodes.
Yes, and maybe here's to 100 more.
If anybody wants to keep up to date with what Dr. Buck is doing out there in the world, you can find him at frankbuck.org. And so thanks for joining us, Frank.
All right. Good
Have
evening.
a good evening. I'll put links to everybody in the show notes so everyone can find you later. And so Augusto, are we done with our first act?
We are.
All right. So with that, everybody, we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor today, and then we will be back after the break for the rest of our news. We're going to actually talk about news at some point during this show, but we'll be back after the break in a minute.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating, and there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined with Augusto Pinaud, Julie Bestry, Art Gelwicks, Trevor Lawbeer, and maybe at some point Francis Wade will join us for the, the back end of this show. But we're going to get actually into the, for our 100th episode, we are going to talk about some news, and we're going to talk about some of the technology-related news this week. Augusto, what's our first story this week in tech news?
Brave is trying to dethrone Microsoft Teams and Google Meet. And it was interesting that the article didn't mention Zoom, but Brave, if you don't know what Brave is another browser, or that's how they start, based it on the Chromium concept. And now they have, multiple things. They have crypto, they have a news, they have come with a lot of products under their Brave brand. And the next thing is a product. The premium version is around $7. And what they are trying to do is to get into the business and help businesses to stop using Microsoft Teams or Google Meet. I don't know many business who use Brave as their main thing, even that their product offering is pretty robust. But, VPN, firewall, crypto wallets, news aggregator, search engine, still, are they there? I don't know.
I can answer that. No. It's a pretty easy one. They have a very small share of the browser market space. I think it's great to have an option, right? Like this is really wonderful, especially for privacy folks who really want high levels of privacy when they're browsing. They're going to get a more secure environment, not secure, but more private environment by virtue of using Brave if they really wanted to. I like the innovation here, and I think this will inform both Firefox, the Mozilla Foundation's project, and it'll probably inform the Chromium project, backwards toward what Google Chrome is doing, what Microsoft Edge is doing, and so on and so forth. For those who don't know, I'm one of the Google Chrome product experts, so I spend time volunteering in the Google Chrome community help forums, helping folks out with the Chrome issues. And so the reality is that you see some of these issues paying forward in terms of productivity because you see the benefits of of folks who are using some of these more innovative products like Vivaldi and Opera and otherwise, and they see what they're doing out there, and then they help inform the Chromium project build out some of those security features going forward. So I'm all for them doing these things. I don't see this taking over, what is it, Jitsi, right? Like, which is the 8x8 product. Look at all of these free open tools that are open source and great. I mean, it's fantastic that Jitsi gives that capability, but you think that's going to take over Zoom or take over Google Meet? Absolutely not. It's just not caked into the ecosystem. Certainly not going to take over Microsoft Teams because of its enterprise. It's an embedded enterprise tool there. So I don't see it as being anything other than cute. It's cute to see them doing these kinds of things, and I laud them for doing it. That's great. Anybody else with any other thoughts?
I agree. It's good to see an option, but from a business space, yeah, the only place you're going to see this is on one of the test machines in the IT department while some longbeard's going, I want this and I want Linux on the desktop. You're going to have that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I would just say that, like, in my experience, Google Meet is a pretty bad experience. Like, I'm almost completely on Zoom, and every time I have to use Google Meet, I'm just like, oh God, I got to do that again because it's just so bad. And so to have Brave then say, oh yeah, we're going to try to take over Google Meet, I'm like, you're working all the way at the bottom, trying to, you're not going to, just never going to get there.
From that kind of experience, I don't know if any of you have tried Butter. But it's another Zoom Meet, in that, and it's not perfect, but I found it on Product Hunt and tried it, I don't know, like a year ago for the first time, and each iteration of it is better, and it's cute. It's not very business-like, so it makes, if you want to invite like grandma to something, it's designed for a more Gen Z business experience that's more laid back, less corporate feeling. You get like these little cartoon avatars of yourself that are sort of 3D. They kind of look like the Fisher-Price little people from the 70s. I mean, it's got charm. The problem is that charm almost never beats where the big money and the big attention is. So you've got big money in something like, what Microsoft does, but nobody likes, Teams and Meet and all of these big things. Other than Zoom, nobody seems to really enjoy a lot of the video experiences.
It's because it's prescriptive, though, Julie. Like I don't have much of a problem. I don't have as much of a problem with Google Meet as Trevor does, except for that I sometimes find the quality of the video to not be as good as Zoom, which is why I've just chosen Zoom as my primary video product. So I think part of it is that it's prescriptive.
And I think my trouble is more with the audio than the video. So that's interesting. So what I've done, I'm in a mastermind group, and what I've done every so many months is said, okay, instead of doing this kind of call, let's play in this sandbox. And I went through, and when I pulled up Butter, that was one where they were like, this is really neat. The sharing felt more intuitive. everything about it felt low stakes and low stress, but like somebody had put a lot of thought into making it easy for somebody new to use it. So if you were familiar with, Skype or Zoom or any of these things, it was so intuitive that you felt more at ease playing with it rather than just sticking with the steps that you knew how to do. So my concern is, I want more playing in all of these realms. I remember many years ago, I mean, probably 20 years ago, I used a browser. Ray might remember what it was called, but it was a German browser with a taxi cab theme. It was this quirky sort of browser when everybody else was still using the mainstream ones, and it had all sorts of features that made it fun to use. And I think sometimes we don't want to have that much fun at work. I don't know, but I like the experimentation of the little guys, but I worry that, it makes me sad sometimes. I feel guilty if I'm not using their stuff because they need me to keep up their user base. And so I think it's one of those things where we need a balance of little guys, even if they're never going to become the big guys. Sort of like sometimes you want to shop at the big box store, and other times it's really nice to spend your Saturday afternoon going in and out of all of the little shops downtown. So I think there's a place for all of these experiences. There's just not necessarily money for all of these experiences.
I can't think of the browser, but Camino comes to mind, but it's not Camino. I don't know what it is. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, looking at Butter, it is. I hate to use the term. It's adorable. It has a.
Can somebody put a link to that in the chat? Because when I searched Butter, I got a BTS video.
I think it's join
butter.us. Yeah, butter.us. It is very. You're right. It is very Gen Z feel to it. And that's the only thing that concerns me. Not that it is that. It's that businesses, unfortunately, from the top down will say, oh, we want something to be hip and with the times and all. So we're going to make everybody use this. And all of a sudden it feels like forced fun. This is a perfect example of a product in a space that I think is approaching it the right way. But to get your people to use it, it actually has to come from the ground up. It can't be something that's pushed from the top down, because as we all have seen, forced fun in a business environment is the worst possible thing you can do to people. But it does it looks really neat. I'm going to play with it myself.
Also, Michelle Williams, I believe it is, she had made a recommendation a few weeks ago for us for an application called Volley. And we have been utilizing Volley. Both Augusto and I have been utilizing Volley internally just to kind of check it out and see what it's all about. And it has been I just feel like it's been a really interesting experience and something that I want to continue using. Like I really feel the way in which they've created the platform has just been video first, video forward, but it still gives you text and audio. It actually speeds up the video if you want it to. You click on the little rabbit icon and it speeds up the video. So you're in an asynchronous communication mode. It's got a lot of really, really good features. And so I've been really pleased with it. And actually for all of the moderators for Personal Productivity Club, I was thinking, well, we could actually use Volley as a mechanism for being able to interact and engage. And so I'm just, thinking out loud, but yeah, Volley is also a really, really great app. I'm looking forward to playing around with Butter. And I'm glad to know that it's not a BTS video.
No, it would have more fans then. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I'm sure that's why it came up at the top of my Google search.
I was going to mention Volley too, because it's been quite interesting, especially when you want to send information and get the response, but the response is not critical. That said, it is, like any asynchronous communication, interesting to change the dynamic, because there are things like, okay, I'm saying this, I really want the feedback. So the shorter the message, the more effective Volley is. But it's been a really interesting thing to use.
Interesting.
All right, on to our next story this week, Augusto.
So our next story is Microsoft Defender is previewing in Windows, Android, and iOS, and they're saying the Mac will come soon. So Microsoft is making noise again into the antivirus and stuff. So with their Defender app, what is interesting to me is they are coming Windows, Android, and iOS, and with the idea of help protect your family data and devices against threats and malwares and phishing attacks. And for your elders, this may be a great solution. Right now, it's only available in English and in the United States, but it's a good application.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of the need for people to be putting any antivirus software on their systems that are not built by the operating system itself. So that's just personally me. You think of the need for antivirus means that it has to have very low level control over your system. And I don't know about you, but every Patch Tuesday when Microsoft puts out their, umpteen patches to their systems, I don't particularly think Microsoft has a control on security of their own operating system and their own products. It feels a bit whack-a-mole. And I believe this of Google, and I believe this of Apple as well. Apple just has a much better job at controlling the narrative than Google does. Google's concept of controlling the narrative is it's a bit of an anathema, right? They just let it happen and hope that somebody doesn't notice. Microsoft is a little bit more controlled about it, but generally it is what it is. But I just think that by putting more applications on a system, you're just increasing surface for someone to attack. And so Windows Defender doesn't necessarily, to me, especially on iOS, doesn't seem to be more protection to me. I don't know, but that's how I see it. And in terms of Android, there are some really good, antivirus softwares for Android if you really feel like you are being targeted. Otherwise, keep your systems up to date, keep your applications up to date, and don't click on links that you don't know, right? And that means about 90% of your links, right? Just don't click on anything, and you'll be fine. But beyond that, then use common sense and a little bit of skepticism as you approach, the outside world. And I don't really think it's necessary to have this kind of software on your systems. I feel like it's a little bit more dangerous to have it on than not. That's just my kind of 2 cents of it.
I'm going to skip my opinion about Microsoft products. And
no. But if anybody has any opinions other than mine, then I'm happy to hear those opinions other than Augusto's.
No, I agree. You're just asking for trouble with most of the other ones. It's more aggravation than it's worth. There's negative system impact and things like that. We've gotten to a point where the third-party add-ons really aren't necessary. The operating systems are basically taking care of what they need to take care of, and the updates are coming when they need to. It doesn't count when an operating system breaks itself. It's other people breaking it that's the bigger issue. So
totally understandable. Augusto, I think we have time for one more story before we get into the back matter of the show.
Well, Microsoft, Google, and Mozilla are trying to work together for better browsers. And the world's biggest browser developers are trying to join the force to make a better browser capability as an effort called Interop 2022. So Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Mozilla, and a couple more are trying to see how they can make browsers to work better. And this is exciting news because this is a battle that it comes from the Netscape days, okay, the Internet Explorer day. Who is making a better or a worse browser instead of how can we collaborate to really have better browsers, period, not mine better than yours better than mine. So this is something exciting.
I think anything, just like with Matter or any of the other cross-platform collaborations among the big tech, more so than solidifying their position in the market, I believe that it actually helps smaller players in the market have a standard by which they can operate. And even if that means I need to adhere to, Google, Apple, and who's the other one? Amazon's, standards as it relates to Matter, so that my IoT devices can connect to the system. I don't mind that as much, as long as I'm allowed to be at the table, right? I want a seat at the table, and I think that a lot of developers and a lot of companies are left out when there are all of these, piecemeal standards. And so, while the web is the open web and you can do anything you want with the protocols we've written for the web, it's really important for everybody to come together and really choose some ways in which we're moving forward. Trevor?
So I was pulling up the actual thing, and it doesn't feel like that it's that big of a news as it sounds like, because it's a follow-on from the last thing, and the details, what they're really doing. So we already have specs on how browsers should be interoperating, but different browsers have implemented them in different ways. And so it looks like a lot of this seems to be like either like we're going to make minor things to the spec, or we're going to improve how the specs were interpreted. But when I'm looking at this thing, it's like color spaces and viewport measurements. For me as a developer, I love this, but for the general user, I don't think this is big news, because they did what was it, Compat 2021 last year. They're doing interop this year. We've been doing this for 20, 30 years now. Like, this has been a constant thing of there's standards, then browsers go forward past the standards, and those get standardized. I don't see this as being any different, other than, hey, we want to try to align some base level stuff here before we move to the next level of incompatibility.
Yeah, my only thought in whenever we look at this is that they are continuing to at least talk, right? Because that's the worst thing that happens when these companies decide to go their own way. Think about Amazon with their mesh network. I forget what it was called, but it connected to the various devices, and by going their own way, it creates all of these silos, whereby the other companies then go, okay, well, if you're going your own way, then we're going to, on back channel, make you look bad in the media and that kind of thing. And then it kills good technology. I'm just glad that they're still talking. Like,
yeah. I just, as a developer, I've seen IE 11, once IE has been out of the picture, it has dramatically fixed the landscape. Edge now using Chromium as the base. Basically, like, they're tweaking around the edges. I can tell you, because I have to test on all the different browsers, that there really isn't this dramatic difference that there was back when we had IE and everyone else. Mm-hmm. And we would just say, like, you can't use this on IE, or if we have to build for IE, we can't build all these other features. So yeah, now we're basically in a world where we're tweaking at the edges. So this is tweaking at the edges.
So I don't want to throw us off too much, but Francis Wade has joined us. So hi, Francis. How's it going?
It's going well. Great to be with you guys again.
Yes, happy 100th episode to us. And so we're gonna move on from tech stories, just because we have limited time here, and there are many of us. And so let's get into our. We just have I think one or two business and finance segment items. Augusto, you just want to cover those quickly, and then we'll head into our productivity resources this week.
There is one, and on the business and finance, and it is Asana in course on a Q4 loss, and the user expansion and all that. But we have bring the point to try to bring more and more of this news. So this may not be a great one, but they lost 25 cents per share.
Yeah, but I think again, this requires someone with better background in finance, but the overall story to this, while the headline sounds negative, it's actually not. It's very reasonable that the headline would show this loss, but I think the underlying finances for Asana are very good and very stable. It's just if it bleeds, it leads. So they have to make it sound onerous, but or not onerous, but bad. But the reality is that Asana is going to be fine. So, all right. I'm actually not going to bring our tools up on the screen this week, just for stability of the call and audio and everything else like that. So we're just going to talk it out. But either way, every week, Augusto and I scour the interwebs for the various news, and we're going to have a lot of extra news in the extra story section of the show notes. So when the podcast comes out, and those of you who are listening to the podcast, check out the extra stories in the show notes, because there are a lot of them that we couldn't cover today. But yeah, we come across a lot of productivity resources we'd like to share. And so this is Productivity Resources of the Week, where we get a chance to share those with you. And so I'm going to start with mine, and then we can go down the line and everybody can share theirs. And and so my first resource is an application called Threadit. And this is actually a brand new Area 120 project. So for those of you who are unaware, Google has a section of the company called Area 120, where they go ahead and release these kinds of beta tools. Well, Threadit is actually a kind of like Volley almost, in the way in which you can do short video recordings in order to share work that you're doing, and you can then send it to your team, to a group of people, and they can then themselves respond back. So think about something like your colleague says, you know what, something's going wrong for me in Outlook. And so they do a little screencast talking over the issue. They show you the problem. They then send that Threadit to you. You see it, and then you asynchronously record back a video clip showing how to actually correctly do it, and say, oh, sorry, that's a little bit of a user error, and they go on with their day. Julie.
Is it kind of like what you see on TikTok when one person performs and then somebody else overlays their performance on the first? Is the entire first video, does it remain intact when the second person responds?
Yes, in a way it does. This is much more connected to your email, and there's like all kinds of pieces that are kind of built into Threadit. So it's like, yeah, Volley is a little bit more like what you're talking about, where you have one video after the next video, and they're kind of stitched together, and you can see them one after the other, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Threadit, it's a little bit more enterprisey, right? And I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but it is just helpful to be able to record a quick video and send it to somebody. And dissimilar to say Loom, this one is in a conversation, right? So the Threadit is about the actual, hence Threadit. It's like you're threading the conversation together, whereas with Loom, they're just independent videos, so they're somewhat disconnected from one another, and so it makes for a way for you to have cohesive conversations just asynchronously.
And I think that's one of the big things that differentiate Threadit with Volley, is that they are, at least on the books and the marketing, do it from that perspective, from, hey, we're going to do it. You're going to be able to define who can see it, who cannot see it, in the same way you do a Google document. So it's trying to bring from that confidential information going on.
Augusto, what is your productivity resource this week?
So mine is Telegram. Why? Because we have been doing 100 episodes of this show that we can document in a private Telegram that you and I have, and we have never talked about Telegram in this show. So that is the show, the product I'm going to talk. Telegram is a message or message platform that you can do videos, you can do audio, you can do so many things with security. It works on any device, including the web. It is fantastic, and it is what we use on this show to communicate internally between Ray and I all the time. So I was in shock as I was looking at my application that we have not talked about Telegram. So here it is. Telegram is the app of the week.
Yeah, I'm really surprised we haven't talked about Telegram.
I researched, I couldn't find it.
Because literally, we use it every day, all day long. It's pretty much the core part of what allows us to make this show happen. And yeah, it's a really, really flexible and dynamic application. I'm really pleased with it, and and it keeps autocrats at bay. So that's also a good part of it. Of it all. So, all right.
Question on Telegram. Can you record a video and do a threaded type of discussion, asynchronous discussion on Telegram?
Yeah, so you have actually the ability to record short videos, and they're in little circles, and you cannot share your screen in the same way you could, say, with a Volley or Loom or even Vimeo Record. Vimeo Record's Chrome extension allows you to share your screen and record with a video on top of it, and so you can't do that. But if you go into a live streaming mode, say in a channel or in a group, you can share your screen in that live stream environment, and then also have video as well. So there are parts of the application where that's possible, and I believe that there are parts where it's not. And again, the application's updating all the time, so I could be saying that and I just haven't noticed the feature. But my understanding is that in a private chat, one-to-one chat, I'm not able to share my screen with you in that same sense. In a live call, say if Augusto and I jumped on a live call, we can both video and share our screens in that live call one-to-one, but it's not being recorded. Not to turn this into a Telegram tutorial. On to our next resource. Julie, I think you had a resource you wanted to share that was a bit analog.
It is. So, but it actually fits with what we were talking about in the A block about self-care. So, imagine that you're going to dial a phone number, which I'll give you in a second, and you hear, if you're feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, press 1. If you need words of encouragement and life advice, press 2. If you need a pep talk from kindergartners, press 3. If you need to hear kids laughing with delight, press 4. For encouragement in Spanish, press 5. Well, if you dial 707-998-8410, you get all of those options, and I have cycled through all of them and then passed the different numbers on to different ones of my clients, because when we're talking about self-care, we talked about different things work for different people. Children's laughter or advice from a 5-year-old or a little kid saying, you can do it, is amazingly freeing in a way that advice from your spouse or your therapist or your boss is not. And I have, like I said, I've cycled through all of these, and I would strongly recommend, when you're not waiting until you're having a bad day, do it now so that you'll remember it when you are having a bad day and go back and listen. And again, it's 707-998-8410, and it's Pep Talk, PEPTOC, kind of TikTok-y, I guess, is the way they were thinking of it. And it came out last week. I guess just like maybe 9 days ago, and they have just had an amazing response to people calling. And it's just these kids at a school put this together with their teachers, and it's delightful and it's great for your self-care.
Fantastic. And I can only imagine that Twilio is underpinning some of that. So congrats to the Twilio team. I'm joking. Even though it could possibly be Twilio underpinning it, I don't know. Does anybody else have any resources they want to share? You don't have to, but if you want to, feel free to go for it. Art, and then Trevor.
Mine's a quick one. Since we're all about trying to make things easier, I've started using a tool as of late called Hi Hello. It's hihello.me, and it is a replacement for business cards. Now, if you go through Instagram or anything, you will see hundreds of these things listed and bracelets and everything else. This is one of the few that I found. One is free up front, which is nice for its basic implementation. It has a very clean visual style. And in the digital business card, you can not only create your email signature, you can create a forwardable one, you can create one that you can send by text message, and you can create one that'll do by QR code. What I like about it is it has an app that you can load, that the widget allows you to just pop up a business card. Somebody can scan it right everywhere you are, and they can either capture it in, or if you email it to them, they are added to a contact list that the system will track for you, and that you can build up their contact history as well. So it's a nice, cleanly designed, very easy to work with app. It has a very streamlined UI. I've been very pleased with it, and I've been using it quite a bit. It's now my new email signatures, and the styling is very nice. So again, it's hihello.me.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think I put that into the chat, the video chat for those who are watching live. So let me know if that's correct. All right, Trevor, you had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, so along with what we were talking about before, like my tip about how I like to not break the chain, but I like to be able to skip a day. And a lot of the don't break the chain apps don't let you do that. So the one I use is called Everyday.app. And it's a really nice, colorful way to track a whole bunch of chains that you want to do. And the chain gets darker the longer it gets. And it's really nice. And then you can click skip a day, and it creates a triangle rather than a full square filled. And it doesn't break your chain. So it's really nice if you want to implement skip days in your don't break the chain, so that way you can more effectively do it.
And it's pretty.
And it's very pretty. Yeah, I love the colors. And what's great is they have a Chrome tab plugin. So basically every single time I open a new tab, I see where my chain is, what haven't I done today, what's going to break. And so it's a constant reminder throughout the day. I don't have to go to some separate app. I don't have to check it on my phone. It's just throughout my entire day, I get all these pretty colors showing my chains, and that helps me keep my chains better.
Is it customizable? Can you customize the color to the task?
Customize the color, drag and drop. You can make them rainbows or however you want to do it. Yeah.
So if anybody wonders, we know what Julie will be working with this evening. So.
Yeah, that's both the blessing and a curse of productivity resources of the week is when other people come on and they share all of these really great tools, and then I have to spend my evening playing with them, of course. So thank you everybody go for it, Francis. You had a resource you wanted to share? Go for it.
Yeah, I just dropped it. I put it in the private chat. Could somebody copy it over to the?
Yeah, I'll copy it. Go
regular old chat.
Just explain it for the audience.
Yeah, it's called auto screen capture. And it saved me more than once, but it's for folks who are a bit obsessive about where they spend their time and keep track of their time. It's a very easy way to track how you spend your time. It takes screenshots every few seconds, saves them to a file on your desktop. I have it synced to something in the cloud, and whenever I'm tracking my time for the last periods, I always track my time. I go back to, that's the easiest way to know what the heck was I working on when I thought I was working. So auto screen capture. It's very obscure, very hard to find by doing a Google search. So the link is important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, everybody, for the productivity resources. And let's close out the show with our story of the week, our featured story of the week this week. Last week, actually, Apple hosted their March event. And so they announced a few new products. And so the resident Apple fan, feel free to tell us a little bit about what happened.
That's a risk. The show now will be another hour. Thank you very much. Let's get comfortable in here.
I have the end broadcast button. No, it won't.
So the story of the week was when we were 100 days, 100 podcast episodes. Anyway, Apple announced a new computer, Mac Studio, with a new chip. And well, I want to see what Intel is going to say about that, when a month ago they were saying that they were 12 months behind with this new chipset. Hopefully there is no more of that. Now they will be 24 or maybe 36. Good knows. They also announced a 27-inch 5K display with the camera, and the camera having all the, not only 12 megapixel, but that is a decent camera. It's one of the biggest complaints of people with Apple laptops is how bad the camera is. This has a good camera, a good display, and even has that feature that was introduced for the iPad where the camera will follow you to a certain extent where you are. They also announced a new entry-level iPhone, an iPhone SE. I think the new iPhone is going to be around $430. So it's an entry-level phone. They use the old technology, or the old frame with the button, the Touch ID, but it's good to see that. And the next thing was they launched their new iPad Air. They put the M1 chip. And it is interesting to see Apple continuing that famous distinction from Steve Jobs of this is the Pro and this is the non-Pro. And you could see with that new iPad Air, it has the same chipset that the Pro, but they limit on other things to make a clear distinction between being a Pro and not a Pro device. And finally, they introduced the green color on the iPhone 13s. So Alpine green, and I forgot what is the name of the other green. So you can get now your iPhone in green, and they continue not keeping a good orange. So I will keep my phone.
Did
on
they
black. We'll decide
introduce
to change
green,
that.
or did they invent green? I just want to
No,
be clear
we
about
just introduced it this time.
Okay, just curious. So okay.
Yeah, no. Right now we have the chipset to brag about, so we don't need to invent colors because right now nobody else has been able to catch it.
So, anything about this event or these products that Apple announced, will they affect your productivity or affect your people's productivity?
I actually have had a number of clients say to me, people in the Android realm, that they've always wanted to get an iPhone, but they didn't feel like they could plunk down the money for an iPhone. And they've been watching the SEs. And I don't think, people who aren't in the productivity and technology realm don't really pay attention to like Mac rumors or something telling us what's going to be coming. And this 2022 SE is very exciting for them. I think it's a good price. I can tell you that my mom is 86 and is like really psyched to get this one, an upgrade from her iPhone 5. So
Yeah, and it's a 5G phone. I mean, it's not a bad upgrade for somebody who doesn't have 5G, who wants to get the 5G. I know there's an SE cult out there. They all love their SEs, and they're going to probably upgrade to the SEs. I totally get that. I think it's a decent phone for folks who are in the Apple ecosystem. It makes total sense.
I'll be honest, if I hadn't gotten a 12, I upgraded in December. Had I really had a sense that this was going to be as well positioned as it is, I probably would have waited and gotten the SE, because I don't need the fanciest thing. I just need what will work. So I think for people who aren't in our realm, it's going to be really popular.
And it's important to mention that on the SE, this is the third generation of the SE, and the prior two generations has been exactly that. This is not the flashy, but this is a super reliable phone that will work and will work every time. And for the market who don't need the fancy, who just need a phone that is going to be reliable, this is a fantastic device.
Yeah, this is something that Augusto and I talk about on cross-platform all the time. If you're building a hybrid platform for yourself, these types of hardware options, having something that isn't $1,000 device, but will give you the capabilities of that particular operating system as part of your hybrid platform, can really open the door for new opportunities for you. So I razz Apple all the time, but anytime they're willing to bring something in to broaden the price point and broaden the opportunities and open it up to a larger audience, I think that's a good thing.
Oh, and I had a client who he started with an iPad last year. When the iPad went to $399, he got an iPad to test it. He was an Android person and Chromebook person before that. And today happens that he bought his first iPhone because he's been enjoying the use of the iPad. He's enjoying the use of the iPad, plus all his family has moved to iPhones. So he decided, okay, it was time that he stopped being the outlier in there. But as he mentioned to me, it was great test because I had no doubts that this is going to work and it's going to be an easy transition. I already tested with the iPad for $399 and said, well, that will have not worked. I will have sold the device, and it will have been a cheaper test.
Yeah, I'll note this for me. I think the iPad Air is something that I might consider because it has 5G available to it, and my iPad 10-inch is, getting a little long in the tooth. It's working perfectly fine. I mean, I have no problems with it whatsoever, but it's running on LTE, and why not upgrade, and pray to the AT&T gods that that 5G works when I need it to. But like I feel like it's an incremental upgrade for me in terms of the power I'll get. I mean, it'll obviously be a more powerful device going from whatever. I think this is a 7th gen, 10-inch. So I mean, it's not that high powered, but it has everything I need. But the iPad Air is going to be more powerful, and it will give me the 5G connectivity. And I like the colors. It's going to go in a case anyway, but it's still nice to have some color choices. I see that as a great option for the handheld, tablet focused productivity that I would want to do. And so if anybody is in that space where they have an aging iPad and are looking for the next one, I feel like this iPad Air fits all the criteria I have been looking for that next upgrade.
Well, not only that, in your case in particular, and just because I know the insights of your technology, you are a cross-platform person. Okay, you have all these devices. You live on an Android phone, and you have now one cable that, if you upgrade to this, you will be able to basically standardize everything technology-wise that you have on your office to a USB-C port, and that, in my world, is really exciting because the more you can standardize that, the less issues you have to, oh, I forgot the right cable or the right adapter for those matters.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened to me. I went on my first work trip in a while, and I have a new laptop, and so I sat down, got into the hotel room, went to set up, and I was like, oh, I forgot a cable, and then I was like, no problem, because it's USB-C. All of the devices are going to connect and power, and there's nothing more relieving than to be in a random city at a random time and be like, I don't have a power cable and I'm 6+ hours away from home. I got to take a plane, a train, and swim to get to my house. I do not want to have to do that, because then the next choice, of course, is you buy another cable and you go on with your life. But now that cable comes home and gets put in a drawer and you never use it again. And that level of, for me, overconsumption is just really, not tenable. And so, this ability to centralize cables, I think, is a huge productivity gain for a lot of folks. And so, while I don't want to get rid of a device just to, match cables, if you are ready to upgrade and, you pass the iPad down to the next youngest person in your house and, you upgrade, that kind of thing, it's not being lost and you recycle where you can. I think it's actually a really good option for folks there. Anyone on the studio, on the M1 Studio?
I saw the price tag of the top end version of it.
Yeah, it tops out at like $30-something $100, right?
Oh no! The fully maxed out one.
Oh, is 6,000 something.
It's
right?
a Honda.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like the top end is like $8,000. Okay, it's just I'm trying to figure out how it translates into the gold ounces. Just equivalent thereof.
Yeah, the starting price is $3,900. Yeah.
It's a neat device. I love the idea again of being able to provide specifically design creators a type of device that can just handle anything you throw at it, where price tag is not the question because of the type of work you're doing. I think that's great. It definitely has an audience targeted for it. This is not something that you're going to see on everybody's desk, and nor should it be. But I would have been disappointed if Apple had released something less than that. So
I think this is supposed to replace the G series, right? This is the replacement of the G series, right? This is supposed to be the. I mean, it's weird to me that they would create something that's supposed to be this beautiful, high-powered device, but it looks like a Mac Mini that you could shove under a desk. But because the G series was supposed to be this big honking thing that you put up and people could see you spent several $1,000s to buy this thing. You got a mortgage to get the thing. Now you spend the same amount of money and you could basically tuck it in a drawer and go on with your day.
There was rumors they were going to build them into old iMac cases, so you could get it in various different colors, and there was no actual display in it. That was going to be an aquarium, but.
Well, hey, you laugh. I've done that with my old Macs.
See?
My SE30.
They were perfect size for sea monkeys.
So I would just say,
it's not a Honda. You can get the $1,600 monitor, to pimp your ride. That'd be completely.
There you go. Now you're Tesla territory.
You can get a really, really good Hyundai, though. I like a really good Hyundai. Not Honda, but really, really good Hyundai you could get for the price of that machine. Trevor, go for it. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, as the developer, like, we were chatting with the guy I used to work with, and they're drooling over this. This was described as the Captain Marvel of Mac machines. And because, like, he's there, like, I run 5 or 6 different simulators all at once on my machine right now. He's got, like, one of the newer M1 MacBooks is just grinding, and with something like this, the efficiency gains you get when you are actually using high CPU level stuff, it's a no-brainer, especially if you are in a high-paid profession. You're making $100, $200 an hour, and think about that, like going from 30 seconds down to 5 seconds, that adds up real quick, and your payback period on something like that is real quick. So again, I agree, aimed at the high-end people, but for the high-end people, this is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, if you ever want to appreciate the audience,
and Apple didn't make it to anybody other than that high end. Again, as I said before, they are making really clear where is the basic and where is the pro, and they are making that, I think, is good. They are making easier to you understand, which side do you want to be? Because if we go 3-5 years back, you see the MacBook Air and then you see the MacBook Pro, and different was $200. It really was a hard decision. Okay, here, no, it is $1,500. Okay, there is no. The decision is really, really simple. If you are on that market, it's clear for you. If you are not, then you will move to the other machine.
All right. There's a lot more in the show notes in terms of some of the stories related to the Mac Studio and all that fun stuff, so folks can check that out if they want to. Any other final thoughts related to the Apple event from anyone? Speak now or forever hold your peace until the next time you're on the show. Okay. With that, we've got some announcements. Augusto, you want to handle announcements? I'll handle the voting, but if you want to handle the other announcements, and then I'll explain to everybody what I mean by that.
Yeah, our announcement is we are doing this year again the poll to vote for the top female productivity organization and technology expert for the Women History Month. So you can come to the link that it's anythingbutidle/2022 expert with an S at the end, and go there and vote for your experts. And we are looking forward to bring them back to the show and talk more when the casting is done.
Yeah, so we are closing the poll on 3/20. I think it's 3/25 or something like that. But we're closing the poll later in the month, so you have a week or two left of voting, and then on 3/28 we'll be announcing the winners, and it's like the top 10, something like that. But we'll go ahead and do that. And so, but we're really looking forward to. I found out about a whole bunch of new people that I didn't know about before, which is both like exciting and a travesty that there are so many great female productivity organization and technology experts out there, and they're hiding from me. I feel affronted. So go to the poll. And if you know about any productivity organization and technology experts that happen to be of the feminine persuasion, put them in. And if they're not listed, there's another section you can type their name in, and I will go find a photograph of them and lift it off of the web and add a card for them to be voted on. So feel free to do that. And we're looking forward to highlighting those folks when we get to our show on March 28th. So thank you everybody for voting. We've got a lot of votes coming in, and it's great to see familiar faces creeping up in the ranks, and new faces as well. So good there. All right. I want to just thank all of you for coming and joining us for this little mini celebration of our 100th episode of Anything But Idle. We really, Julie is celebrating again with a little 100 sign on her screen. And yeah, no, I really, we couldn't do this every week without the community, those folks who show up and join us in the chat and watch the show live. But of course, those of you who are listening to the show after the fact in the podcast, that's where we primarily do it for those of you who are listening to us. So we really appreciate everybody who listens and engages with us and all of that fun stuff. And for those of you who join us on the show to talk and share your productivity knowledge and help do the commentary that we do on the show. So thanks so much to all of you. And I'll take you all off one at a time, and that way I can show everybody on screen how they can find you. And so let's start with you, Francis. And so Francis, you can be found. I don't know if I have a slide here for you. How can folks keep up to date with what you've got going on in the world? What's a URL? What's the best URL?
Why not the Time Blocking Summit, Task Management and Time Blocking Summit, which is timeblocking.summit.info.
Great. I will put
contact
that
information is all there.
Folks can keep up to date with Francis Wade at timeblocking.summit.info. Thanks so much, sir.
So long. Farewell.
Art Gelwicks, thanch you so much. How do folks keep up to date with
Anytime.
you and what you're doing out there in the world?
You can use the address that's there on the screen, or you can go to Gelwicks Tech, GELWICKS.com. I live there, and all things Gelwicks are there.
Wonderful. Thanks as always, Art. Good to see you.
All right. Have good job, guys.
Thank you.
Trevor Lawbeer. How do folks keep up to date with you? And thank you for joining me on the show as always.
Yeah, theoptimizer.com, and I'm all over the web at Fast Fedora. So Fast Fedora.
We've got to get you on the show more often. It's really great to have a developer perspective when we talk about some of these productivity technology focused items. So we appreciate always your perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, totally. Well, happy 100.
Thanks. I'm not that old. Oy. And with that, Julie, where can folks keep up to date with you and what you've got going on in the world?
Okay, so the website makes it easy, juliebestry.com. That's JULIEBESTRY.com for the listeners only. And I am Prof Organizer at PROF Organizer on Twitter. And I'm everywhere either by my name or some version thereof. My last name's pretty uncommon. And thanks for letting me celebrate your big day, guys.
No,
wonderful. Thank you as
very much
always.
for
Always great to have you on the show. All right, and with that, Augusto, then there were two.
Then there were
100
two,
times.
Agatha Christie famously said.
Thanks so much, as always, for putting together the show and making it happen every week. It wouldn't
Thanks
happen
to
without
you, my
you.
dear friend. It's been a pleasure to count 200.
All right, then, everybody. On anythingbutidle.com, you can find our show notes. Today, we had a lot of guests on screen, so we weren't able to cover a lot of the stories that we collected throughout the week. So you will definitely want to check out the links to all the stories, as well as the tools of the week. We have plenty of them for you to check out and play around with between now and next week. And of course, if you've gone through the show notes and for some reason you've gone through even all of the extra stories and we didn't cover something, feel free to head over to anythingbutidle.com. Go ahead and you can write in, you can comment on the show, you can find us in any number of ways. You can tweet at us at anythingbutidle and let us know if we missed something. Also note that there are text transcripts. So if you want to read or download and read offline the transcript of the shows, those are available there on anythingbutidle.com. Also, if you just go to anythingbutidle.com/100, you will get to that episode like all the other episodes, and you'll be able to do that. By the way, if anyone is unaware, there is a community, a group dedicated to Anything But Idle, and it's based inside of Personal Productivity Club. So if you are looking to join that, go ahead and go to anythingbutidle.com/community, and we post the episodes, and we can engage with you there all easily by virtue of going into the community. But if you go to anythingbutidle.com/community, it's a shortcut that will take you directly to the sign up page so you can join Anything But Idle there inside of Personal Productivity Club. Personal Productivity Club is our community for personal productivity enthusiasts. So there are lots of other things going on inside of Personal Productivity Club other than Anything But Idle, but it is where we centralize the community for that. And so with that, feel free to click the thumbs up icon if this is your first time watching the live stream or your 100th time watching the live stream. Feel free to subscribe to the show and let us know about how we're doing by either rating or reviewing us in your various podcast apps out there. So we really appreciate the compliments we hear, the feedback we hear from the personal productivity community. And so we love keeping you guys informed of the productivity and technology news. And so with that, we will see you all on episode 101 of Anything But Idle. Here's to your productive life.